That's how kind of the world works sometimes. If you think about it, like you just put a ton of value out there and you get a lot more in return.
Patrick, we've known each other for a long time, man.
We have.
I barely had gray hair when we met. I still had some because I got it in high school.
It was buzzed. It was buzzed. You still had that white thing going on.
You want to know why I buzzed my hair? Because it was free. I just go in my garage and do my own hair because I was such a cheapskate back then.
No, the first time I was thinking about that on the way up. First time was at Thanksgiving Point. And
Curriculum for Wealth.
And you had Dennis Waitley there. Because I just had a buddy that was at Dennis Waitley's house.
Yeah.
And he looks amazing, by the way. But I remember like, holy crap, that was
dude, that was
time I met Garrett.
One of my worst speeches I've ever given.
I thought it was amazing.
Okay, no, I remember my in-laws were sitting there, and it was so like, first off, it was such an ego speech. I had these like slides, and I was talking about all my investments, like to impress people. But I was nervous because Dennis Waitley was in the room, so I was reading my slides. Then he left at intermission, and then my second half of my speech was better. But I just remember being like, I can imagine my father-in-law is super analytical, him thinking, oh my God, we're going to have to clean up such a mess because he's such a jackass being overextended. Like, you know.
I thought it was amazing. That was the first time I heard you
speak,
speak, first time I met you, but it's been quite a journey since then.
Yeah, man. Like, I'm excited to have you on because you still remain one of the most abundant people that I know. Very open in sharing everything that you're doing, what's working, what hasn't worked. And that's what this is really about, is like, getting scaled is this notion of like people try to scale at the expense of their own life. And that's like, you know, like getting screwed, getting scaled. And so I know I've made a lot of mistakes along the way doing that. And, you know, one, I know that you build a software company, which is just, I don't envy that. Like I tried to build software. I don't speak the right language. It was just like, by the time it was ready, it was already antiquated. So
that's the technology world. And I wish I had success stories there. We're still building it. It's not even really a company. Obviously it's supporting, it's going to help scale a company, but software, the software world is one of the most intriguing world that's out there in a business sense, because they've figured out operational rhythms. They've figured out how to turn creativity into reality. In a methodical way. It's been awesome to
high leverage
to
when it works, very scalable
because
when it works.
Code is ultimate leverage, right? You create it once, it can operate a billion times, right? At the
so
same
many
time,
users simultaneously.
Yeah, you have infinite. You know, the marginal costs are like zero past a certain point, right? So it's how the world works. It's why these big companies are valued at the level they're valued because of that leverage.
I remember us talking about Slack, right, when it sold, how insane that was.
It is. And you're like, how do they get that valuation? How does Airbnb worth so much? How is Uber worth so much? And it comes down to the technology. It's like the support of the technology and the output that it gives, right? Those margins are just not possible when you have people doing the work. When you have code doing the work, that's where the leverage is.
How can you own a business and not have more gray hair and look so young? You haven't aged. What's going on? Is it genetics?
I don't know. It's probably genetics. I'm not doing anything like intentionally because I probably
do you still
should.
do CrossFit?
I do. Yeah, I do CrossFit. And I got a Peloton during COVID because CrossFit shut down. So, but no, I think that, you know, that's the biggest stress relief. I think that's kept me healthy, but
remember when I tortured you on the air assault bike?
No, that was the thing. It's the last time I've been at your place.
The fact that we're still friends after the torture.
Well, your dog is over here on the floor, and he's like, "Oh, this is my dog." And I'm like, "Yeah, I remember your dog." Because I was like, I couldn't get up, and it was like licking my face.
I'm like, it's just a 60-second test. No worry.
Oh, dude,
I got in so much trouble with my
that.
wife because her brother threw up doing it.
Oh god!
And he was.
You got to tell people about this. Like, so
yeah.
you had this challenge. You get a T-shirt. You get your name on the wall if you do 30 calories on an Airdyne in 2 minutes or 1 minute.
In 60 seconds. Yeah,
in 60 seconds. And it's.
And I used to be an ass. I used to be able to like I would do it and talk the whole time and film it. Be like, come on, it's not that bad. But it's because I was doing like sprints and I was working it all the time. Although up here at this elevation, I did worse. Yeah, it was painful, man. Like not worth it.
Now that's one of those memories where it's like, the most painful memories are the ones that you.
Do you have the T-shirt?
I still have the T-shirt. Actually, my brother-in-law uses it in his like landscaping company, so he's walking around with it every once in a while. Like, dude, you didn't earn that. I earned that.
Yeah, it's like I think we got that from the Sean T program, right? Like Insanity, you got a shirt if you completed the 60 days. But I remember you from the early days of mortgages. Is that where you started? Was mortgages?
Yeah, because I was in school, right? I was at the U finishing school, and I worked at a company that had a call center. They did debt consolidation programs, and then they had kind of a mortgage side. So I just like floated in there while I was finishing school. So that's where I learned like the outreach call center methodology. I learned some marketing, some
It's
CRM.
a Utah product right there, man.
100%.
We got call centers all over, right?
We do, and that whole world has changed. But I learned like the fundamentals, and then did mortgage for a little bit, and then so I had those components. Then I came on to
Yeah,
you,
I remember
Garrett
when you were on
White,
Second South, that by the post office over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
The building over there.
the Royalwood Office Plaza.
Yeah, totally. I went and renewed a passport there, and I was like thinking about you. I was like,
Dude, those were the
now
the-
your new office is amazing, dude. I
Yeah.
love it. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's definitely bigger than or smaller than the previous one, but it's like
But
yeah,
just
we're
the
100%
aesthetic
remote
and
now.
the whole, the whole.
I love it.
Yeah.
Excuse me for just a second. I know I'm interrupting your video, but it's because I'm really excited about this. Disrupting Sacred Cows, my newest book. It's new, it's fresh. It's about all of the things that have to do with our relationship to money, the things that hold us back, and how to, kind of peek into that, be able to resolve that. And ultimately, with the new economy and everything that's happening and moving so quickly, it is timely to help you have more success in your finances. So go ahead and click the link if you want to grab this book and dive on in.
So it's been a cool, yeah. So I would say like, yeah, that background really just kind of created this, idea of how a business operates kind of subconsciously in a sense. And then I took that to, the insurance and financial world, a lot of which was influenced by you.
Yeah, but I
Kim
look at like what you did things that I hadn't thought of doing at such a big level. Like I remember you were an expert on different people's programs in the insurance field, and then you had people writing based upon your content and putting it out there.
Yeah.
Like how did that all come about? How did you figure that out, or what was that like?
Dude, it was a lot of it's just luck. Like it was one of those, in those times of desperation where you just have to figure stuff out. You just go out and do as much as you can and then hope it comes back. And so that was the time when, I got this job offer from my neighbor who was like the district manager of Morgan Stanley. He's like, hey, I know you're struggling. Come and
This
do
was because the mortgage meltdown.
the whole mortgage
08,
meltdown,
right? Like
some investments went
companies
sideways.
are going out of business, and
Yeah, and I walked away from a partnership where I started the insurance side of things, walked away from a partnership and owed a lot of money, and just didn't know how a way to pay. I thought I could pay for it, wasn't able to pay for it. So, but I had a database and I just started doing webinars and just like I kept the podcast going and just did as much as possible. And one thing led to another. What I found
for me, it was like I knew you were doing that, and it just was really quiet. And then all of a sudden, like it was like, oh, you were everywhere. I was like, oh, I probably should have been talking to you and learning from you.
But it was done. A lot of that was luck, and it was just developing relationships and just trying to help people. I think I had that mentality. I was humbled, and I made a decision. I'm like, I'm just going to go figure out a way to help people, right? Because I was learning about like how to negotiate with creditors. I was learning about like lawsuits and learning about judgments and liens and
very personally.
Yeah. So that's where I was learning, right? And then I, had
which
this
is all this mental capital you get, painful. But like you get when it's one thing to know something, it's another thing to experience it and feel that, so you know what someone's going through.
But my mind changed too, where it was like I just want to help. I just want to do as much as possible for somebody else. If I get business from it, if I make money off it, awesome. If not, like I just was compelled that way because of how humbled I was at the time. So I just remember doing webinars and just meeting with people. Sometimes never got any business, never did anything, but help them avoid bankruptcy, help them like settle with creditors, help them marriage wise. It was nuts. And then one thing led to the other. I mean, those relationships with these big kind of marketing groups, right? I met one person who knew another person who knew another person. And it just, that's how kind of the world works sometimes. If you think about it, like you just put a ton of value out there and you get a lot more in return. So I got lucky, and that obviously added a layer to my understanding of business, which is influence, marketing, copy, and it was a profound experience, and still benefiting from it today.
What I look at is because of the experience that you went through, you understand the value of certainty. And I look at a lot of people that are out there selling overfunded insurance. But then they get really derailed into crypto. They get really derailed, and so they have this fundamental thing that isn't as seductive, it isn't as sexy, it's a little bit more stable, and I think there's some danger into young advisors that haven't been through an economic cycle.
For sure. And I also think that there isn't an understanding of the relationship between certainty and uncertainty. And so I think uncertainty, my experience, I mean, Tony Robbins shares this all the time, where uncertainty is, we're drawn to it. We're drawn to the unknown. We're drawn to the different. We're drawn to the novel. Uncertainty, I think, is healthy. At the same time, it's kind of like trees and roots, right? The uncertainty is above ground. The certainty is the root structure. If you have a weak root structure, right, then you're going to have a storm, something happens, and it's going to knock the whole tree down, right? But if you have kind of I would say a more symmetrical balance between certainty and uncertainty, that's going to be healthier. But then going into the realm of uncertainty, you can place uncertainty in the hands of someone else who you don't have control over, like crypto or an alternative investment or this guru or that guru or something that you think is just going to go to the moon. But usually those opportunities are outside of a person's control. So the direction of that uncertainty energy is powerful to think about. If it doesn't align, and you preach this to all day long, if it doesn't align with who you are, right? It's like a caffeine hack.
It's devoid of value, and that's where we're stuck. We're devoid of value, understanding of our value, understanding of the value where we put our money, and what impact that has and where it goes. And because of that, we've been continually seduced by risk.
Yeah.
We've been continually...
But think about it. That's where I would challenge. I would say, yes, at the same time, you can appease that energy of uncertainty by pursuing things that are interesting to you, pursuing things that align with who you are.
Not relegating them, not handing it over, not understanding it, because that's where people get into trouble. Is they go, and it's always late, because it's like it keeps seducing them. Like, well, I hear about all these people making it. And then all of a sudden it's like social media shaming, and then it's like, oh, you're not involved in this, and then they finally get involved, not knowing what they're involved in, and then surprised when it loses.
What's an example? Like, what are you thinking about from an example?
I mean, dude, crypto's the number one. Real estate. Like, think about how big real estate got with low interest rates, and then it's on everybody's news feed. Yeah. It's in everybody's news cycle. But a lot of people don't belong in investing in real estate.
Nope.
Because when I invest in real estate, I've mostly spent time talking to bankers, attorneys, property managers, even maintenance people, like nothing that I was really inspired about on any of those conversations.
And it took that energy away from stuff that you were inspired by.
Which was intellectual property, which was creation. And so, but how many gurus do we know that say that you have to be in real estate, or the people that became quasi gurus in crypto? And so people started getting involved in cryptocurrency and a bunch of shit coins, not knowing what they were, simply because they heard people are making money.
Yeah.
And with a very minimal narrative of like what it could do, not what it was actually doing.
If you enjoyed this episode of Getting Scaled, I love interviewing fascinating people, asking them plenty of questions so we can discover what worked for them in life, what didn't work, where they made mistakes, and where they had triumphs, and how all that happened, and then just maybe have a good conversation so that it's entertaining along the way. If you like that, there's more Getting Scaled episodes. Why don't you click through and discover a new one?